Adam and Lee Molloy, thank you very much for coming on and joining me on the Prymal podcast.
Thank you for having us. We've had plenty of great men on and women on these seats before us, so
there's been a few bums in seats over there.
Just to add our arse cheeks.
I was saying as well, but it's going to be a nightmare for James now because we've got two twins on 3 cameras, and this is probably one of the, I think we've only done 2 other podcasts with 2 guests, and that's it. Usually it's one-on-one stuff.
Yeah.
So James in there now frantically pressing a million different buttons, hoping we get the right Molloy twin up on the screen.
It's in control now, don't worry about it.
There he is. It's under control.
Trust James. In James we trust.
Well, first of all, I'm just going to have a drink from my brand new Prymal cup here. Little sip of coffee. Thank you very much for the gift.
You're more than welcome. Our pleasure.
So lads, a few things we're going to talk about today, right? I'll set the frame. Usually I do this at the start of a podcast just to give people a bit of context on what we're going to talk about and why we're going to talk about this. You guys reached out to have a conversation with me. We had a lovely chat on Zoom. I've been following your journey since. I've actually read your book as well.
Yes.
What's the official title? It's the one thing I didn't put in my notes. What's the title of the book?
It's Better Than Before, and then the subtitle is 5 Rules for Personal Greatness.
Is this available now for people as listen to the podcast?
Available now, yeah.
We'll link everything afterwards as well, but get the plug in early. I'm all about getting the plug in early.
I appreciate it.
I'll explain as well to anybody who's seeing. I have a laptop here, which I don't usually. I pulled loads of interesting lines and quotes out of the book. I really enjoyed reading it. The main kind of focus for me today is there's unfortunately 10-year gap between myself and you guys. And anyone who's familiar with this podcast will know that I like to talk about things that will empower myself and others to take control of their life, to live more kind of connected, purposeful lives full of meaning, all the hallmark kind of nice things that people like to write down. But for me, it's had a massive impact on how I live my life. And often I talk about the youth of today and social media and all the problems that we deal with, but it's rare that I would have people significantly younger than me in the seat across here to have this conversation with, and maybe that means I'm a little bit disconnected sometimes, so I can kind of comment on things and not actually have any experience. So what we'll focus on today really is getting your kind of perspective. Obviously we're going to build your journey into the whole thing,
of course.
But tell us a little bit at the start where the book came from. People will be familiar from the little intro I did with your journey and things like that, but what was the whole idea with this book?
Yeah, it's a great question. The book itself, like where that originated from, we were on holidays together and we were in Puerto Rico sitting by the pool. And we always loved reading, and I studied English in school or in college, so writing was always something that I wanted to do. I didn't know what book I would ever write, but I always wanted to write a book eventually. And sitting by the pool at Puerto Rico, and we were just talking about different things. Like, this might sound big-headed, but we were like talking about our journey. Not that we've done that in amazing, but like where we came from, what we managed to do, all that sort of stuff, and how we got to that point in life. And we were like, why did that work out for us and it didn't work out for maybe other people we were friends with or family members or whatever else? Like, how did we get these opportunities or be in these positions? And we were kind of just talking like how we could build a framework around what we done subconsciously. Like, we weren't aware that we were following these rules at the time, but it's like, if we had to apply rules to what we use to get to this point, what would those rules be? So hence that's why the book was 5 Rules for Personal Greatness.
Okay.
That came later, obviously, but the initial seed was like, if we had to try and like explain to somebody the rules we followed to make things happen that we wanted to happen, what would those rules look like? So that was the idea of, okay, let's try and put something together. And then obviously I love writing, so that little light bulb went off my head, went upstairs, took out the laptop, wrote I wouldn't say a full book, but like a good chunk of a book, sent it to Adam. He read it, was like, 90% of it is shit, but like the idea is great. Like, let's keep the idea, let's take the good parts, let's rework some things, and let's make it into something a bit more digestible and relevant to people. And then that was sort of the process. Then from there, it was probably 6 weeks later when the book was published, like ready to go. So
okay,
it was a short process, but it was a nice one. Quick.
Yeah, I've questions already. We're have questions already. So we spoke about this with James before we start. What you're describing to me, in my opinion, is the exception to the normal kind of pathway for people. And I mean, I'm a man, so young men as well. At that particular stage in our lives, there's not necessarily a whole amount of clarity. Clarity is literally the first point you talk about in the book as well here. So to have the clarity to recognise, number one, that your path has kind of gone a different direction from the average path, and then number two, to see that there were foundational building blocks to that path. That's not normal. In a very positive way, it's not normal. So my 2-part question is, and maybe we'll go question for Adam, question for Lee first.
Nice.
So my 2-part question. First part of the question is, what are the challenges and the things that you think, and you maybe have identified even since writing the book, that most people who don't have your story, as you described earlier, come up against? What are those challenges and what do they look like? And I'll give you the second question so you can think about it while he's speaking.
Nice one, I appreciate it.
And the second question is, how did you recognise that there were steps and kind of guidelines that you followed, and where did they come from, do you think? So you can think about that one. I'll go back to question number 1 for Adam.
I think some of the biggest challenges I see people our age and even younger potentially struggling with, big one, because we have so much access nowadays to social media and all the good and bad that brings, I think comparison is a massive one. And constantly using other people's highlight reel on Instagram as a measuring stick to see how far behind you are or how much progress you haven't made compared to where other people at a similar age or a similar stage may be. And that's where I think social media overall can be a very positive thing, because I think one of the things that let me and Lee recognise success, recognise progress that we made and actually use to help us along our way is looking at people who are 5, 6, 7 steps ahead of us on the journey, and looking at them and listening to them and taking their advice and feedback on board that we could then use to shorten our learning curves. But on the flip side of that, I know from personal experience and from chatting to people of our age and younger that it does come up to a stage where at times it feels like, you know, I'm constantly surrounded by people who are an example of what I am not or what I haven't achieved or who are so much further ahead. And I think that constant comparison syndrome that you get drawn into is really difficult to pull yourself away from. And it's just this never-ending loop and cycle of, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be this. And that can be very difficult and overwhelming to pull yourself out of. And, you know, if that's the recurring message in your mind from the age of 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you know, it just gets to a stage where it's like, self-esteem is shot. I don't feel like I have the belief in myself. We speak about vision being the number one rule, like the top rule that we have. The first rule is have a vision for where you want to go. But I think so many people, when they get to a stage of even trying to have a vision, they've compounded that belief in their mind that I can't achieve big things or I can't go after big goals because I'm not good enough or I'm not this or I'm not that or whatever else. I think that almost blinds them from having that big vision of what they truly want from their lives and what they could be if they could get out of their own heads a little bit, you know, and see what's potential there for them.
Lee describes you in the book as the guy who started early with the gym, deadlifting double your body weight at what age? 18, 17, 18?
Yeah.
So you're the guy that people would traditionally compare themselves to. When they go on Instagram, they'll be looking saying, geez, your man's in shape, he's killing it, he's smashing, he's doing all these things. Did you feel that sense of comparison? And apologies, I'm going to press my timer.
You're all good. I did. I think there's a natural comparison when you're twins, especially because the whole age growing up from as soon as you can start walking is like, who's the faster twin? Who's the stronger twin? Who's the funnier twin? Who's this? Who's that? And definitely internal comparison between me and Lee. I think that probably was the driving force behind me from probably the age of 10 to maybe 13 or 14 was wanting to be better at football, wanting to be fitter, wanting to be faster, wanting to be stronger. So like that internal comparison that I had probably never verbalized it to him growing up was like, that was a constant measuring stick I was looking up to try achieve that. And then I think somewhere along the line of going to achieve different goals, especially trying to be a footballer, like there's so many other kids that want to be footballers, it's near impossible. But I think going through that process of working on myself through trying to get fitter, get faster, get stronger, being in the gym, push myself, I developed an understanding early on that if I'm going to succeed, it's going to be because of me. Like the work I put into the gym equals the results that I get. So if I'm putting it in, I'll get the result. If I'm not, I won't get the result. And I think that was my kind of learning ground to understand that, okay, if I just get sucked into, you know, watching all the chaps on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube doing mad shit in the gym, that's not going to serve me, versus if I just keep the blinders on and focus on me and ticking the boxes and showing up daily, that's what's going to get me to the results that I want. But definitely from an early age, comparing myself against Lee primarily in all aspects of life, school, sports, funniness, you know, girls, all that sort of crack was like really, really profound in my mind from probably as young as I can remember.
Was it similar for you?
Yeah. But like it was never a conversation we'd have with each other. And a lot of the comparisons were also external. Like in school, like if I got, I don't know, 60% on something, I haven't got 70%. What did you get? You know, so like there was internally there was that constant comparison, but also externally it was like everything I done got compared against what he done and vice versa. So it was a very profound sort of and permanent sort of thing in our life.
Yeah, I think this is why one of the reasons I think why this conversation is so fascinating to me, because again, that's not the norm. It's normal to have a little bit of comparisons in there, but some of the stuff you were saying there about understanding that input equals output, and you do the work, you'll get the results, and to try not to compare yourself to external people. But like obviously twin brothers, it's going to be hard not to compare yourself to each other, but that's almost a healthy kind of, you're both raising each other up in that, as opposed to comparing yourself to some random person who's nothing to do with you in a completely different environment. It's unusual, so that's why we'll dig down. This is going to be your question now, come back to you in a second there. Was the comparison, now that you've discussed it looking back, was your journey different to Adam's journey in terms of that comparison and that internal drive? Because again, just having read the book, not my words, are in the book, the fat gamer kind of. I didn't write the book, lads. You wrote
You
the
put
book.
that in. You stuck that in.
But you put the before and after pictures as well.
Yeah,
so obviously
yeah,
you've turned it around. So we're having a different conversation now. But they were the words you used to describe and they weren't words used to describe you, Adam. So was it a different process for you? Was it Lee? Was it looking at Lee and comparing yourself to Lee? Oh, sorry, looking at Adam. Comparing to Adam. There's number one, right? Strike one.
It's all right. You get 3.
I get 3 strikes. Was that a driver for you, or was it a different journey for you? That idea of comparison syndrome. I just think this is an important one because it's probably one of the pivotal, as you've identified there, the pivotal reasons why people struggle. Young people and men especially thinking at this age, especially now at this age, I have to be a millionaire and have 3 Lamborghinis and own a TikTok house and whatever else mad shit's going on. It's way more intense now. What was your experience like compared to what Adam just described there?
Yeah, well, the way Adam described it there, and again, this is interesting because we've never really compared or talked about how the comparison was for him versus me. It was more just internally.
Welcome to the Prymal podcast.
Yeah, thank you. For him, it seems to be like it was a very motivating sort of thing. Whereas I feel like for me, there was a motivating element, but there was also a lot of times where it was more like created a sort of resentment.
Okay.
So not that I didn't like Adam, but I resented that everything I'd done got held against what Adam was doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was times where maybe I'd done things not because I wanted to do them, but just because I knew it like distinguished my identity from Adam's identity.
Yeah.
If you know, I think, and the gaming was probably a part of that. And like Adam was big in the gym and big in sports and all that sort of stuff, and he was like stronger than me, faster than me, which was motivating up to a point where it's like, I'm never going to be that fast or that strong because I don't care about it as much as he does. And then it was kind of like, why do we even bother? I'm just going to do something else. And that's probably where the gaming thing sort of started. And the weight gain, I can't blame him, Adam, unfortunately. I wish I could. That was my own doing. But, but yeah, there was a motivating element, especially once I got a bit more mature.
Yes.
Coming towards the end of school. Like me and Adam we always say we're like nerds in school. And like, if he spent 2 hours studying, I was going to spend 2.5 hours studying. Or if he's getting 80%, I want 81%. But like a healthy sort of competition.
Yeah.
But in that kind of younger, like say 14 to 16, like immature sort of phase, I hated the comparisons, and I sort of actively wanted to show, no, I'm Lee, I'm not just Adam's brother, I'm my own person.
Brilliant. Yeah. This is really interesting to me. It's like a little mini social experiment because what you just described there, if you look at today and look at a lot of the stories we hear, and like you guys kind of listen to podcasts and consume this kind of content as well, there is definitely an element of this is what I'm supposed to be. I'm never going to be this. So fuck that. I'll sit my ass and play video games, or I'll smoke weed all day, or I'll eat shit food, or if I can't have 30-inch biceps tomorrow, why would I even start? What's the point? So I'll just sit on my ass. And the common thing is to come up out. Unfortunately, like I wouldn't say I was a big gamer, but I was mad into gaming when I was younger as well. I get it. I understand it's gamified. There's a sense of purpose. There's levels to it. It's very addictive. I get all that. But it seems to be one of the go-tos now for disenfranchised men who are being compared to what we should be, then being told that we're not allowed to be that because it's toxic or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And then we're like, you know what, fuck this whole thing, I'll just sit in my ass. And then there's the questions like, why are men not taking control, and why are men not achieving, and why are men dropping out of college, and why are men doing all these things? It's like, the answer's kind of in front of us. And you just described the version of that, but in your own little kind of ecosystem, you kind of worked together to work through that. And now like you're sitting here with a book read, you're talking about this stuff, you're educating on this stuff. So like that's the success story. Whereas most of the time I feel that's not there. So that's kind of where you're maybe going with this whole information and passing this over. So back to the question originally, Lee. Do you remember the question? Because I can't remember the question. I do remember the question.
I recognise
how did you recognise sitting there at the pool having the chat that there was a series of steps? And when you recognised that, where did those steps come from? Do you think, like that information, where did it come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. And unfortunately, I wasn't responsible for them. Adam came up with the steps, or at least most of the steps. But it was more conversational. But to like put a distinct title on them, it was more Adam who was able to sequentially.
That first copy of the book that he wrote, that he said, I said was shit. I did say it was shit, but like the first draft, let's say, he put together was basically more of an autobiography sort of style from him. Going through the journey and what that looked like. So the steps were in there. I just don't think he identified them, let's say. So it was us chatting through it and seeing together. It's like, actually, we zoom out from this. It's not just about that action. It's more so the foundation of what led to that action. That was the step or the framework that we put in there. So I just think it was more so getting the language around them.
And I think the steps only made sense in hindsight. It wasn't in the moment. It was more just sitting down, and because like the book thankfully turned out to like actually come into existence, and we made it happen. There's been a lot of things for me personally and with Adam, like we've tried projects in the past where we'd start and stop. I'd try do something, I'd try move into a different direction, I'd get pissed off, burned out, didn't want to do it. So I feel like my life has been a series of failures that just ultimately ended up with a successfully published book. And it was more from the failures that I was able to see, like, why did the book work this time and everything else I tried before that didn't work? And then it's like, all right, vision. Well, I always had a vision. Like when we tried to set up a clothing brand before. It's like we had the vision of the clothing brand.
Had a few caps.
Like we had caps.
Oh, yeah.
I could see people.
Hit me up, lads.
We sent one of
But I was like, I had the vision of like, I don't know, celebrities walking around in their caps. Why didn't that happen? And then it's like, well, rule number 2, commitment. I half-arsed it. And then when it didn't work out at the fourth word, I was like, yeah, fuck that, I'm not bothered anymore.
Yeah.
So I was like, and then just walking back to you, I was like, all right, and then if you commit to something, what comes next? And it's like, well, you've only a certain amount of time and energy each day, so you have to pick your battles. So that's rule number 3. And then number 4, environment. If you're around the wrong people, it doesn't really matter what you're trying to do. They'll probably end up dragging you back and turning you off it in the end.
Yeah.
And then number 5, process, not outcomes. If all you're thinking about is when... I'm trying to think of a non-controversial celebrity here so we don't get...
Go controversial, go for it.
When Brad Pitt is wearing a cap, right? You keep it simple.
Pretty vanilla, to be fair,
isn't it? But like,
Safe.
If success is just judged by the day Brad Pitt wears your cap, there's going to be a whole gap in between where you're going to feel worthless and useless and you're probably going to quit. So focus on the process, you know. So instead of Brad Pitt, I don't know, some smaller... I don't want to insult anybody. Well, you know, walk up to the Brad Pitt. Yeah, Dan Campion.
Some random dude.
Exactly, but focus on the process, not the outcome. So the steps make sense or the rules make sense. And I think what's beautiful about them is you can kind of take any big goal and work backwards using the steps and the rules that we give. Yeah. Now, does that mean it's going to work? I don't think so. If it did, I think we charge a lot more money for the book. But it gives you at least some sort of framework that you can start to apply to whatever your big goals are.
Follow-up question for that particular point. What kind of content, if any, were you guys consuming around this time? And I'll tell you why I asked that question now in a sec.
Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me a question about Brad Pitt or something. I was like, actually, I don't know many Brad Pitt movies.
Fight Club, it's only one
real. The content we were consuming around this time, that was a great question. I don't know the answer. Adam recommended this book for me and I've recommended it to every person that's ever asked me about a book since. 10x is easier than 2x.
Okay.
It's by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. I could do a full podcast on the book. I don't want to bore you, James, or Adam with that, or anyone else listening. But essentially the concept is, so 10x is obviously 10 times bigger than whatever, and 2x is 2 times bigger. And the reason why it says 10x is easier than 2x is because 2x is basically just taking what you're currently doing and do more of the same. So like if I make 300 quid a week, how can I make 600 quid a week? It's like
work harder,
work more hours, take extra shifts, whatever. 10x is like, how do I go from making 300 quid a week to $3,000 a week? It's like there's not enough hours in the week to make that much money. You need to think outside the box. You need to get creative.
Very good.
Different frame of thinking.
It shifts your perspective. So I listened to that book, I think the first time, like May. And then I listened to it again just after. Like, there was so much in that I didn't really get it. And then it's like, all right, what's a 10x? Because I was PTing at the time and I was new to the PT game, so I was kind of like, I'll give it a while and see what it's like. But I knew I didn't really like it. Didn't really like the environment. Wasn't really passionate about teaching someone how to squat. So I was like, what's the 10x move for me here? Like, fuck 2x. What's 10x for Lee Molloy? What does that look like? And I was like, what do I care about? I was like, I like working with Adam. I like mindset. I like personal development. I like books. I like talking. It's like, what's a 10x vision? It's like, can me and Adam come together and make content that aligns with the kind of vision we have for life and the kind of things we like to consume and read about and all that sort of stuff. So I say fundamentally that book more than anything else has changed my whole perspective towards life and approach towards work. And I don't know if I would have wanted to write that book had it not been for listening to 10x is easier than 2x.
Okay. That's really interesting again. And I'm going to keep saying the same thing over here because we discussed this earlier on. I feel like one of the biggest problems that we have nowadays is an abundance of information but a lack of ability to take action.
Yeah.
That's been a problem for me in the past as well, like up until very recently. And even now it's something that I struggle with too. There's so much information, so many books, so many podcasts, everybody's recommending another thing you can watch, you can read, you can listen to another expert in this, whatever. But actually being able to implement that, problem number one, there's too much information.
Yeah, 100%.
And your first point is with this as well. Like, you cannot gain any clarity about what you want when everyone's telling you it should be something different. You should be a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, or you should be super happy Buddhist monk living on the beach and whatever. Which one of these two things am I supposed to go for? Which obviously is a knock-on effect for every other point you talk about. Like, if you can't get that clarity. what fascinates me so much about your story is that I know how difficult this is, and I'm in my 30s and I've loads of people around me supporting me and helping me, and I still find it really, really difficult to identify, like, what the fuck am I doing here, and which one of these 10 different tips I heard today am I supposed to do today, and how long is my morning routine supposed to be, etc., etc. And it defaults back to the original point, Lee, with fuck it, I won't do any of it. Like, I'll just come in and do the old comfortable, I'll come in and just cruise through my day. So being able to break through that for me is really interesting, and it's in that little piece that I keep coming back to, where I think the real key message for people listening to this podcast today is going to be at the end of my 2-hour rant. is like, how do we, because you guys have managed to harness that now, and you've obviously learned that this works, and you've seen a little bit of success personally and professionally with the book and everything from that, so you're kind of doubling down and building on that, and it builds its own momentum. But how do we start that? How do we if I'm listening now and for us to have the conversation is fine, because we're kind of a little bit further along the road now. The road is 100 miles long and we're about 5 steps in, and I include all of us in this room and that. And we've got our business, we've got our direction, books, podcast, content, stuff like that. James in the back there with his community and stuff. So we've kind of overcome that initial inetia. But once you overcome the initial inertia, the problem's way bigger then, because now you can see another level of the problem, new levels, new devils. You're like, whoa, this is a whole new problem. How in your guys' opinion would you? It's a weird question, because it seems to have happened relatively organically for you guys. Maybe it was having each other there, maybe it was that level of support. But if someone's listening now who is in that fuck it mindset, or nothing works for me, or I've read Atomic Habits but it doesn't work, all this stuff is bullshit. Where would you guys reckon that you should start with this journey, with this kind of project of life?
Firstly, having Lee by my side is definitely a massive support network. I think both of us give each other so much strength to go and take risks and do stuff. So I know most people don't have that privilege, but I do want to say that, because I think both of us over the last 2 months, having each other by our sides is like such a game changer for us. We both tried different stuff in life previously, individually. And even if it's been successful, it hasn't been as enjoyable, or as fulfilling as doing stuff together. So putting that to the side, I think people in that situation, one of the biggest things that I'd say, and I know we're both Jordan Peterson fans, so something that JP says will be like, just work as hard as you possibly can on one thing and just see what happens. And I think a lot of the times what holds people back, I used to get a lot when I was in the fitness space, but even now with business owners or whatever else, it's like, because they can't see the full staircase, they just don't want to even take the first step. And I think sometimes you won't see the full staircase, because if we think of the staircase analogy, me and Lee wouldn't have even put this step together really, 6 months ago, thinking about writing a book or then going on podcasts and being on RT or like all this stuff. It's like that wasn't even in our peripheral vision, never mind something we were actively aiming towards. But what we were doing was like, all right, we have an ambition to write a book. Let's just work our arse off at making this book the best that we possibly can. Let's grind this out. Let's go back and forth. Let's not half-arse it. Let's go pro as such at writing the book, editing it, putting stuff together. Let's just make the best thing we possibly can. And then once we got there, it was like the next step on the staircase revealed itself. It's like, okay, now we have the book. Let's go and try get the word out there about this. Let's reach out to people and, think 10x. Like, who are the people we'd love to chat to? What are the kind of shows we'd like to get on? And then that step led to the next step, and the next step which led us to Dance Studio today.
There you go. You're top of the mountain now.
This is Everest.
Everything's downhill from here.
But that's the best piece of advice I can give to anyone in that situation. Is like, I understand in that, especially when you're in those moments, it's like, part of you doesn't even want to think big. Part of you doesn't even want to feel motivated. It's like, it's comfortable, but it's, I don't really enjoy being here, but like the level of misery isn't as high as it could be before I'm forced to change. Like, I understand being in those positions in life, and the best advice I could give in it is pick one thing, just focus on that. It doesn't have to be some mad extravagant sort of like go change the world, make millions sort of thing, but every single person, I'm sure if you look in the mirror, has one thing in life that you could look at and say, that's something I could improve on, that I would like to improve on. And if you can just focus on that and commit yourself to that for the next 3 months, 6 months, and see what happens, I guarantee the next step on that staircase will reveal itself.
Yeah. Okay, series of questions coming in hot and heavy here, right? This is things that one of the lines I pulled out of the book here, or did I write it down on this sheet? I wrote it down on this sheet. I did. There's a lot in the book about being better. Yeah. I get pushed back on this a lot, right? And I'm very comfortable and firm in my answer on this. But why do we need to be better? because the question that people ask, and I know where the question is coming from, I think anyway, it's that idea of it's uncomfortable for me to step out of what's comfortable for me right now, which is this, and you mentioned this a couple of times in the book. Have you heard of the region beta paradox before? Yeah, so exactly. So it's what you're describing there. It's just not bad enough for me to change.
Yeah.
And if it was a little bit worse, I'd actually be better off, which is kind of counterproductive. If my boss was a little bit shitter, I'd quit and I'd have a better life.
Yeah.
What does he use? He uses the car thing. So if I was going a mile, I'd walk. If I was going 2 miles, I'd drive. Therefore, you'd go 2 miles quicker than you go 1 mile, which doesn't really make sense to people. But this region beta, this area of kind of acceptable shit, is where most of us live, and it's where most of us are comfortable. So the idea of having to be better for a lot of us pushes us outside that comfort zone, and there's immediate pushback. I get it all. I have this conversation all the time.
I can imagine.
Everyone doesn't have to be a fucking super athlete, achieving Go Goggins, who's going to carry the boats, motherfucker, win the world. Like, we just want to be happy. And so my follow-up question is, do you know what that looks like?
I want to share a quick quote, and then I'm sure Lee has an answer. But there's a quote that comes to mind when you say that stuff that I heard, and I said it to Lee, and he was like, "Oh shit, yeah, that's good." And it's, most people prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Go on, I'm gonna let you jump in before I talk again.
I love that quote. It's a good one.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to expand on the question you were asking, because, and I think people always frame it in the way as like, why does anyone need to be better? Or why you don't need to be better. You don't. You can keep on doing, like, if that's working for you, cool. You don't look that happy, but if you were telling me you're happy, I'm not God. It's not my job to judge anybody here. I need to be better. And because internally I feel like I'm capable of more than what I'm currently doing in life. And it all comes down to, and it's a very sort of philosophical question, but it's like, when you look back at life on your deathbed, what story do you want to see? And I feel like, right, we're 24. In some people's eyes, maybe we've achieved a lot. In others, we've done fuck all. In my eyes, I'm proud of what I've done so far, but I feel like there's so much more within me, and there's so much more of this journey to go on. I'm not currently good enough, and I don't possess the skills or the knowledge to get the most out of the life that I want to live at this moment in time. So therefore, if I want to get to that point in life, I need to get better. I'm not good enough now, and that's not to say I don't have any value as a human being now, or I'm not a nice person. It's just saying the kind of life I want to live requires me to keep on leveling up to a certain point. And I'm comfortable with that. And do I know exactly what that journey looks like? No. Do I think it's going to be easy? Certainly not. But it's a worthwhile journey, and it's worth going on. And I think because we were on an Instagram live a few weeks ago, with a woman called Sarah, and she was saying, like, so many people, like, because she was talking about the books, like, a lot of people have a story within them, but they're just kind of too afraid to let themselves tell it. And my kind of perspective on it was like, no, people have libraries within them, but they're so afraid of moving on to the next story that they just spend their whole lives reading the same page. I was like, I don't want to look back on my life and say I spent 70 years living the same chapter. Like, I want each one to be distinctively different from the next, and that requires me to keep on getting better to make each chapter a little bit better than the one that came before.
Yeah. Very, very well put. I like that, because that's exactly how I've come to think about this now. Now, 10 years later than you guys have gotten to. If I got this at 24, Jesus, we'd be sitting in a much bigger studio now. But very, very well put, because that is the crux of it. You don't have to do anything. No. And my question it's my question for myself, which is why I just ask other people, is when people say, well, I'm fine the way I am, I'm happy the way I am. I first learned this speaking to the deity Owen Lacey, who I mentioned earlier on, from a health perspective, where most people, when asked, and I saw this in the clinic as well, when asked, they'll tell you they were 6 or a 7. I'm fine, I'm grand. But they're actually a 2, because they don't know what a 10 looks like. They have no perspective on what that scale could be and how happy they could be in their lives. And understanding that completely resets the frame in your own head for, okay, well, this is the life I could lead. I don't have to do anything. I can literally do exactly what I'm doing now. But if I sit and think about how I'm interpreting this life, I'm going to start to feel some pain there, and I'm going to start to realise that maybe it's not what it could be for me, from my experience. But that's uncomfortable. So for me, that part of the process is where all of the kind of giving yourself space comes in, because there's loads of elements to this. Like, there's the action, there's the giving yourself space, there's the thought, there's the clarity, there's the direction, as you guys talk about as well. But the overstimulation I mentioned earlier on as well is almost tactical on our behalf too. I'll consume so much information that I don't have to sit down and feel the pain that I actually know is underneath, which is where I believe all these midlife crises and stuff like that comes from. It's an expression of I'm not happy, addiction, all this kind of stuff. It's an expression of something missing in me that I'm just ignoring or distracting or covering up with something else. So that question there is like, are you actually, you don't look that happy to me, are you actually happy? Sometimes it feels like, who are you to ask me that question? You don't know anything about me. So I've now started to be a lot more careful is the wrong word. I'm not careful because I believe if I can have an impact on someone's life, I should say the things that I want to say.
Yeah.
But a little bit more sensitive because I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
You guys know what that feels like. You know what it feels like to not want to think about that thing, so you just do something else.
Yeah.
And even the gym and stuff like that can become a cover up for another level of dissatisfaction or discomfort. But once you do that and you sit there and you have a little think or a little write or a little chat with somebody, or in your case you have a communication with each other, and you realise this is not what I want.
Yeah,
there's more for me.
Big time.
For me, when I kept reading this word better, I was like, okay, yeah, now that I know what that means to me, so I'm not triggered or challenged by that. Now I'm inspired by that. And that net then helps me think about all the times I've heard podcasts and books that actually made me a little bit angry. Because it was triggering something, and I knew deep down in me, I was like, so I'd be like, fuck these guys, Molloy Twins. I'm just so fucking positive all the time. What the fuck would they know? They're only young fellas. Yeah. Whereas I had the opposite reaction. I was like, this is brilliant, like, because now I'm in a space where I'm like, I'm looking for this kind of stuff. On the topic of distraction, you guys are living it right now, right? You've all these fantastic tools, and you've got the mindset, and you're working towards something. How do you manage all of the things that are actively being put, and I say actively for a reason, we'll go deep on, we'll get the tinfoil hat on now in a sec, but how do you manage all of these things that are actively trying to turn you from the path that you're on at the moment? And by that path, I mean empowering yourself. So I'm going to leave that as an open-ended question. You can interpret that as you will.
Jump in first, because I think I started at such a young age with this stuff, and Lee can back it up, but when I was 13, I think, was when I decided, like, I want to be a footballer. I really want to be a footballer. Don't want to be looking back when I'm 21 playing local Sunday league and then be like, I should have took it more seriously, you know, that way. So like literally from the age of 13 on, I would not eat chocolate, not eat sweets, not eat crisps. It was kind of stupid stuff, but it was things that I thought would increase the likelihood that I'd make it as a footballer and get the United contract, you know, that way. So like I'd be out going for jogs outside. That's why I started getting into the gym in the first place. And at that stage, that was my first experience with, all right, I need to cut out outside distractions. And like, even growing up, I never went to nightclubs. I didn't drink till I was 17 or 18. Like, never got involved with the social life scene or anything like that. And I think the biggest thing, and that obviously filters through now into what I do, of like just not getting distracted, not getting taken off course. But the biggest thing that helped me stay the track, I suppose, throughout all that was the second rule in the book, which is commitment. It's like, I just made that decision that I am going to go all in on this. And straight away, there's almost, I think if you kind of half-arse it and half commit, it's even more difficult, because every time there's a potential decision to make, it's like, they just drain you, and that decision fatigue kicks in, and it's easy to say, nah, I'll stay off the gargle tonight, and then next week maybe not, and then the next week, fuck it, go on, I'll have one. Do you know that way? Whereas I'm just straight like, no, I don't drink. That's it. It's like, there's no decision to be made. That's it. It's done. It's set in stone. And I don't have to worry about that shit, and I can just focus on doing what I'm doing. And that helped me so much growing up, coming up. The football stuff didn't work out, unfortunately. So, but even now with what we're doing with business, with the books, like, I don't get distracted because I know what I'm committed to doing, and I've just set things up in a way where it's like I don't even have to think about the other stuff. It's like, I've made the call. I'm not going out. I'm not doing these things. This is what I'm working on. This is what my focus is for the next 6 months. If you need me outside of that, you know, ring me next year, sort of thing. And I'm just going all in on this. So I think the commitment side of things is the biggest one. It was like, so many people have goals, but they're not fully committed to it. It's not like fully bought in. It's kind of like dip me toe in and flirt with the idea when I'm feeling good or energized, but outside of that, it's like I'm kind of hot or cold with it. It's like, once you make that call, so, you know, I'm just going in and commit myself to the process, knowing that I'm going to fuck it up sometimes, and I will slip up or relapse or, you know, get off track, but I'll get myself back going again and I'll keep moving forward. That for me was the biggest thing. So talk to me about going off track then. What does that look like? For me, there wasn't many times I did veer off the path.
Can I say him going off track looks like him on track?
Yeah. Like, it is true. But anytime I did, let's say, slightly lean to the left a little bit, maybe not go fully off track.
The hard shoulder.
I went into the hard
rumble
shoulder.
strips. Oh yeah.
Wake up. It was always from situations where I was either, let's say, in environments or situations where I was being influenced, let's say, by other people, or other people were doing stuff that wasn't fully aligned with me.
Was it him?
It wasn't the gamer, no. It wasn't him. He was quick scoping up in the bedroom. But, it was always in that, and whenever I'm in situations like that, I always like to just put the mirror back on myself, because it's easy to get in the mindset of, oh, it's because the boys were drinking, that's why I drank. You know, I was like, no one was forcing the drink down your throat. You made that decision yourself. And it was always situations where I just, the language that comes to mind wasn't man enough. Replace that with whatever gender you want, but I wasn't man enough. Just say, no, I'm not doing it because this is the goal I'm going after. This is what I want to achieve. if you laugh at me because of it, cool. If you think I'm stupid, cool. But this is what I'm doing. That's my decision, and I'm sticking by it. So anytime I think I did slightly veer off track, it was because I just didn't want to stand up for myself or my goals or my belief or what I wanted to do, and kind of just went with the path of least resistance, let's say, and just joined in with what other people were doing.
Okay. Lee, what about you? Similar experience or different?
No, very different. But his answer is much more...
it's easy to put a frame on the wall.
Yeah. It's like, it sounds idealized, but it's not, because it's the truth.
Yeah.
Like, his level of discipline is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And even though we're like twins, so like genetically we're pretty similar, I don't have it. I'm not as disciplined as him.
I got all the discipline.
Can't
Chris Cope though.
I can't. What can I say? But like, I've struggled with distractions and just being pulled off path throughout my life, I'd say. A lot of it coming from insecurity and just wanting to be like other people, because I wasn't secure enough in myself to say, like, this is authentically Lee Molloy. I've gotten better at it in the last few years. I think the first big time in my life where I was really able to commit myself to something and avoid all sorts of external distractions was that weight loss journey that we talk about in the book, because that was just so real. Like, nobody could take that weight off me. Nobody could do the workouts for me. Nobody could say no to that whisk bet and not eat it except me. You know what I mean? Like, everything that, like, the inputs were completely on me, and I was completely responsible for the outputs that came from that. So that was the first real time in my life where it's like, I have to take this seriously, because there's no other way I'm going to lose weight unless I take responsibility for every element of this. Mm-hmm. Since then, and like even still today, like, we'd be very busy, like, working on Molloy Twins stuff, and I'd be like, right, I'm just going to check my phone quickly. 40 minutes later, still scrolling on my phone, watching videos. It's like, what did I even come onto my phone for? I was going to reply to somebody, and like, there's so much happening in life these days. Yeah. Something that I'm more conscious of now, and it sounds very simple, but it works for me. Every time I go to do pretty much anything, whether it's eat something from the fridge, respond to a text message, go for a training session, whatever it is, it's like, is this compatible with the kind of person I'm trying to be? If the answer is yes, then I do it. If the answer is no, then I shouldn't do it. I'm not saying all the time I don't, but that internal dialogue goes off in my head. It's like, right, this probably isn't the right thing for me to be doing right now.
Yeah.
So it's a good, like, I was going to say fail safe, but like, I still fail sometimes, but like, it keeps me a bit more on track than I was in the past.
Okay. And do you feel in control of that now? Do you feel like you're just following a recipe, or do you feel like it's a part of who you are now?
Oh, that's a great question. Because at the start, it's you have to force yourself to do it. Yeah. It doesn't naturally come to you. I think I'm kind of like more towards the point now where it's natural, but there still is some things like food has always been something that I've struggled with, and like just not eating takeaways or not eating chocolate bars, because I'm a very like impulsive eater, and like if anything, like if I'm feeling anxious or stressed or whatever, food is always like the first comfort for me. Since that weight loss journey, obviously the last thing I wanted to do after losing so much weight was put it back on. My eating habits did change as a result of going through that journey, but like I still get the same cravings I had before. So that would probably be like the biggest area where it's like, probably shouldn't have had 6 muffins today. But
the 5 would have done, yeah.
Exactly. But every day is a learning day.
yeah, absolutely. It's, again, just another interesting little social experiment, because sometimes it's a common thing I see when people go on podcasts, like obviously listening Adam to you, there was an internal drive there from a young age. You picked something that you wanted, but for most people it's not relatable.
No.
Because it's like, oh, I just had it. Like, I've had lots of top level athletes in here, not on my podcast, but with other clients, and they don't have an answer for me. I'm not a top level athlete. I play a high level of club sport now, but I've had to learn for years and years all these different tools that helped me to do that, and I've become the kind of person. But people say to me all the time, well, you're so disciplined, you're so this, you're so. I'm not any of those things. And people were shocked when I started to talk on podcasts about, like, I struggle with my discipline, I struggle with distraction, I struggle not so much with food sometimes, but I struggle with some of the things that allow me to play Gaelic football, because they just assumed I was just this disciplined machine. You have a little bit of that disciplined machine in you, but it's not to take away from the fact that you still have to do all those things. Sometimes people can think that's an excuse. Lee, you didn't have that intrinsically in you, but now you've written this book, you've achieved, you've put all of this together. You're sitting here in this podcast, you're making these moves, and it's a completely different pathway for you than it has been for Adam. And that's really interesting for people to hear, because most times we hear the podcast or read the book, it's about some animal who's just done these things just because that's the way I am. Be more like me. I'm like, well, how do I be more like you? Like, give me a thing that I can do. And then they say, just get up at 5 a.m. and do 3 hours of jiu-jitsu before you go to work. I'm like, right, I'll try that. And the first time I tried, I was like, I can't do this. What the fuck is this? Like,
miserable.
Because that's here and I'm here. Whereas being able for both of you together to be able to put this together in a way that yeah, maybe another Adam out there is going, okay, perfect, I'm on track here, pick what I want and I'm going at this. But maybe another Lee or Dan, in our case, is out there going, oh, fuck, the lads have done it, but they've come at it from two different angles, so I can now mix and match the bits out of this that suit my life and that make it work for me, and I can move that forward. For me, I think with a lot of the stuff we consume, that's why I asked you, like, what kind of content do you consume and stuff like that, because you get, like, let's dive in, you get Andrew Tate as just be an animal, just be a killer. It's like, I'm a killer. Yeah, fair play to you, man, but like, what the fuck do? I didn't spend my 20s winning fucking kickboxing champions and stuff like that. Like, even you go the other side, the softer approach, Jordan Peterson, like, you just need to be compassionate, find out who you are. It's like, that's grand, but you've got 20, 30, 40 years of studying this stuff. Where's the starting point for me? How do I break the inertia? How do I move forward? And the combination of what you two guys have is a very good way of looking at this, because the proof is in the pudding. You're sitting here, you're doing it, you've written the book, you understand this, which was always going to be my test for you. Like, can you come in here and speak to me about the things that you've written in the book in a way that shows you understand? And so far,
we'll call it there,
James, wrap it up. The lads are sweating here. But for me, I think that's really important. It's why I like to do this and have these conversations, because the books, the headlines, the podcast, the Instagrams are all fine. But unless you really feel that and understand it, can apply it yourself, it's meaningless. It's the mental masturbation we spoke about before. With your environment is obviously a big part of what you discussed, and Adam, you talked about it there as well, the power of that environment. And environment includes the physical environment, but also the people that you're surrounded with. And for me, that's almost more powerful, the people that you surround yourself with. With your peers, with the people, not necessarily that you hang out with, but people you would have grown up with, people in your kind of maybe school or education circles, your social circles and stuff like that. Obviously, it's a different story to what you identified this when you said you were sitting talking about how direction other people have gone and the direction you guys have gone. What do you think some of the stuff that they struggle with is? And like, I'm specifically talking about the likes of social media, drink, drugs, porn, all that kind of stuff. Is there like an overwhelming feeling for you guys who are in it right now that these are the monsters that people are really struggling with at the moment? Because I like to nitpick at certain things. But
no, it is a great question. I think, and this isn't something that's going to help absolutely anybody, but unfortunately they don't have Adam sitting next to them so that they can just model themselves off.
Yeah.
I'm blessed in that sense, where it's like nearly every decision I make, I can filter it through. What would Adam do? Or what's Adam's advice in this situation? Yeah. And he's right more times than he's wrong. I think that's something that's been like kind of revolutionary for me, just on a personal level. And I think that, I don't want to make too big a claim, but a lot of people would live different lives if they just took this approach, is acting from the future self rather than their current or past self. So rather than being like, I'm going to, I don't know, go out this weekend and do this or do that because that's just what I do, or that's what I've always done. It's like, what do I want my life to look like in 10 years? And what would that person do in this situation? Like, well, if you want, I don't know, the yacht and the mansion and all this, you probably wouldn't go being out till 4 a.m. in someone's kitchen, coked out of their heads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, that's a fairly simple approach, but like, it's worked for me in so far in terms of like, how I've been able to filter my decisions in terms of, rather than just doing, Lee is fat and Lee gets a spice bag every Saturday night, so this Saturday I'm going to get a spice bag. It's been like, I don't want to be fat anymore. 5 years from now, I want to be in decent shape, so I might skip the spice bag this week. You know what I mean? And like, it's very simple, but it's like just changing that perspective of, forget who I currently am or what I've done before. Who do I want to be? How would that person act in this situation? And let me just repeat that for long enough till I become that person.
Yeah. There's a phrase I've been playing with, particularly the last couple of weeks, impulse control. This idea of impulse control, because that's where I figured out some of my weaknesses were. And like, it's not that my life is a mess right now. I'm pretty happy where I am. I've got a great family. I've got my business going well. I've got a great set of friends around me. I'm enjoying my football, all that kind of stuff. But there's still areas in my life where I'm like, I've no impulse control in these areas yet. And I didn't even realize it. I was doing things purely based on impulse. And that could be impulse because of what you said, environmental factors. So your friends are doing it, so I'll do it. But it's just an impulse to join the crowd or to do what everyone else is doing or to not to stand out. Food is obviously a big one, impulse control, is what people talk about. But even like the likes of the Netflix and the phone, grabbing the phone, that's still a big thing for me. Like completely subconscious impulse, just to pick this thing up, and your 40 minutes are gone. I couldn't tell you what I did in that 40 minutes. I could not tell you one thing I looked at. And it's all self-help stuff on my feed. It's all Peterson and Williamson and Rogan and all these different people, but none of it's going in because it's just a pure impulse. And then, so trying to understand why, number one, why I'm reaching for the phone, like what's the discomfort I have that I'm reaching for the phone, part one. And then number two, that impulse, is that something that you can manage? It's a learned skill. I don't know. Again, Adam, with you, there was a lot of that centered around, well, this is what I want to be. Some people, Lee, would push back against you and say you're just comparing yourself against Adam, and that's an extrinsic. But I think it's deeper than that, because you're brothers and you can see parts, things you've identified as healthy parts that align with your vision that he's doing, that you can implement. And you probably see the same in Lee with like his writing and his creativity and stuff like that as well.
100%.
So that's unique. Where I want to go with that is, I've personally found I don't have any brothers. I have 3 sisters.
Okay.
So I didn't have that fraternal thing growing up. I was very lucky I had the football thing, but in a football environment, a lot of macho, and you don't want to show vulnerability and all that kind of stuff, which they're trying to change now, to be fair. But for most of us, men and women nowadays, I found that we don't have a Lee and Adam. But a Lee and Adam could be exactly what we need if it's a sense of brotherhood, not necessarily being a brother, or a sense of mutual support or shared vulnerability, because I'm sure you guys are relatively vulnerable with each other as well, and kind of, I feel this way about this, I feel this way about this. Most people don't share that with each other because it's seen as a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And another scary thing I don't want to deal with, so I'd rather just go to whatever it is, the phone or the drink or whatever it might be, to just to pacify myself. So if there's a lesson that I'm taking from you two guys as well, it's something that I really lean on now. It's finding the people who are going to, not necessarily like mentors and stuff, but people who are going to allow you to be vulnerable, allow you to grow, and who also inspire you in ways that you mightn't think. So it's not all about like, oh, he deadlifts this, I want to deadlift that.
Yeah.
It's a mindset thing as well. Like he thinks about this a certain way, or he's able to express his feelings this way, or she's able to communicate a certain way. For me, that's been an absolutely key piece. And I always say having a conversation is the first step. So if we were to look at Lee and Adam here now, and a lot of the stuff that you said, and people are like, well, it's still like, where do I start with this? Because the lads are fucking animals. Like, how do I get to that point where I'm sitting beside the pool having a conversation about, yeah, maybe let's write a book. The conversation piece is big for me. It's why I do podcasts. Just start having coffees, just start meeting people and just feel it out. And you might do 20 of those and you'll get nothing from it, and you'll feel a bit weird and it'll be a bit embarrassing. But the more you do, the more comfortable you'll be with what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then identify traits in people that like, oh, I really like how they handle this particular situation, or how good of a dad they are, how good of a sister this person is. And the more you do that, the more you'll start to get this idea of clarity that you guys have identified at the start here. So all I'm doing with your points is, from my perspective, if I was to go back for me a little bit, how did I start getting clarity? I started having conversations where I was a little bit more vulnerable with people around me. And they were like, do you know what? Maybe you need to have a think about this. And I was like, I've never thought about that before. I get a little bit clearer. Oh, I don't actually want what he has, but I want this thing over here. Okay, now I'm getting a bit, and I'll share this with this person and he gives me more feedback on that. You guys have your own little kind of inbuilt version of that, which is really powerful, obviously, from what you've both said here. But for me, that's probably where I would start. Does that kind of resonate with you a little bit in terms of that conversation?
Oh, no, certainly.
Completely. Like, that idea of being vulnerable and sharing your struggles, I'll say forced into it, but for good reasons. I went through depression when I was 15, and the only way I had out of that I could see was counselling and going and talking to someone. And up until that point, I would have been that archetypal man who just, gets stuck in, gets his head down, doesn't say that, and just grinds it out. And I tried that for 2 or 3 months with the depression, and it just got worse. And I was at a stage where I was like, this is only going to end one of 2 ways, and I'd rather it not end the other way, so let me try it this way. And it was by going to counselling and speaking and sharing that stuff at a young age that kind of opened me up to say, actually, you know what? This helps. This works. And then having someone like Lee in my corner who I could go to and chat about different situations, even if it's not like a life or death situation, but just something that's like, head's kind of fried over this one, like, can I just spit this at you and see what you think of it? And like being able to work things out, you just realise there's so much strength in that connection, and in that lone wolf sort of bravado that I think so many men get sucked into is so draining, man. You just try to carry so much weight by yourself, and you try to think, oh, I'm struggling with this, so maybe I'm not as much of a man as I thought I was, but I can't really say that because then everyone else will know, so I'm just got to keep my head down and keep going. It's like, I've tried it. It doesn't work. It leads to some negative pats, but once you understand and have the strength to be vulnerable and share that and open up to other people, you'll see, number one, it only helps you. Has helped me get so much further ahead than I would have if I tried to go alone. But number two, you realise that everyone else around you goes through the exact same shit. There's no one who gets through life unscathed or unscarred. And the only thing that really connects anyone, I think, as humans is like that common struggle. Like, we all go through shit in life. I remember doing courses before online, and you're sitting there and there's someone from the UK, someone from Australia, someone from all over the world. And like, I have nothing in common with all these people. But the one thing you do have in common is if the lecturer, say, ask a question like, tell me about the toughest time you've had in your life. Everyone has a story to tell. Everyone's been through shit. Like, that's the one thing that I found connects every single person on planet Earth is we all go through those tough times. And it's the fact we try to turn away from that and keep them inside ourselves that I think really leads to the disconnection. Whereas hopefully by us getting on and talking about stuff like this, like it opens up those conversations, especially for the younger crowd coming through as well.
Yeah. Did you ever dabble with psychedelics?
I never did actually, no.
Because you're talking about a lot of stuff that people have breakthroughs when it comes to psychedelics. This sense of like everybody's just a version of me. And I know maybe you have a little bit more, again, you have a bit of a mirror there with each other too, because you can see someone who literally looks like you. And so that's another version of me. And he's struggling with the same stuff. And even though he's into these things and I'm into these things, we're kind of struggling with the same things. That's very, very powerful when you're kind of work with psychedelics and stuff like that. It's one of the big takeaways for a lot of people that I've spoken to is this idea that, you're just, the big one for me is road rage. So now if somebody cuts me off, rather than me fucking getting out of the car and going nuts, I'm like, he might be having a bad day. She might have just had the kids running at her in the back seat and maybe she's struggling with something. Maybe they have somebody sick at home or that. I get it. I get that anger. It's just an expression of something that's going on inside. Now, I'm not this peaceful Buddha driving around blessing everybody and touching everybody in the head, but every now and again I'm like, everyone's just me. Another version of me at a different part of the journey, and I know what it feels like to be angry, and it's probably coming from a different kind of deep down part of me. There was something interesting actually around, and I'm not a Tate fan, by the way. I use him as an example because he's such a prevalent character at the moment. He talks about this kind of alpha, be the best, who's he always got in his corner?
His brother.
Every time his brother literally didn't need to be in prison with him and stayed in prison with him.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So it is, even though this idea is that you're supposed to be a hustler and you're supposed to be the provider and you're supposed to be the number one as a man, particularly, having somebody there is absolutely vital, I think. And it's the exact same for women too. I have a lot of conversations with the women in my life, and it's another area. Traditionally, maybe women would have been a little bit better in terms of their connection with each other. You'd often hear about the girls groups and stuff like that. It's not the same anymore. I don't know what it's like with your generation, but like I talk to a lot of women in their early 30s to late 40s, and it's not the same because women are now expected to work full-time jobs, plus raise the family, plus be the loving, kind of caring, open partner at home and all this kind of stuff. And like, where's the time to discuss it with your friends? And even when you do, now you're all working, and now it's all about money too, and how big's your house and what car you drive into. It's the same thing as we deal with too. It's the same bullshit. Like, so not having that person there in your corner, not even to hype you up, but that you can actually be vulnerable with. I think it's absolutely key. And for me, again, it's back to where this have conversation. You'll find somebody like that. They're out there. We're all looking for it, and usually it'll take you to be vulnerable for someone else to show you that bit of vulnerability back. And when they do, it's like that scene in fucking Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends? Super, super powerful. I'm just going to go through some of the other bits I pulled out of your book here as well, because they'll spark more conversation for us here too. There's a quote in chapter 3, which is, before you climb a ladder, make sure it's up against the right wall. So we talked, it's obviously something people might have heard before in terms of picking your direction. You mentioned also a single, if you're not super clear in your direction, a single degree of change can have you. What was the actual comparison? New York to?
If you go to New York and then you say whatever, you have to go 180 degrees west or whatever. If you're like off by 1 degree, you go 180 degrees west, you'll end up closer to Canada than you would be to New York. Yeah,
I feel like after everything we've just spoken about there, like gaining some clarity about what you want and all that kind of stuff, embarking on this journey is the next step for most people. Is I'm going to start to work out. It's January. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do. But again, if you're not super clear about what the general direction at the start, like, okay, I'm going to go east instead of west, is kind of the first. So not just closing your eyes and spinning around and going in a direction, but outside influence could have a big kind of weight in terms of what the direction you decide. How did you guys make the decision that this was the direction you wanted to go in terms of helping empower people? Obviously, the practicalities of the book and going on podcasts and spreading the message and stuff like that, but for you guys with the direction, what does that look like in terms of the outcomes that you want people to have when you talk the way you talk now, or when people read your book and stuff like that? And what could variations on that look like for you? The reason I'm testing you here now is because you wrote this in the book. I want to see, like, how did you guys put together your direction? How do you make sure that wall is right for you in terms of putting your ladder up against it?
It's a great question. I'll give my answer first, and then I'll add him. He's the one who put that quote into the book, so I'll let him expand on that one. But for myself personally, like, we launched, so the name on the page nowadays is the Molloy Twins. But if you open up the book and go towards the back, you'll see that we have a Molloy Twins Fitness. It started off as a fitness page. And the idea was that we were going to promote online coaching. Like, me and Adam would do online coaching for men mainly, but whatever, whoever's going to pay us.
Any gender.
So it's going to be a fitness page. We make fitness content and we promote our online coaching. And that was the whole reason why that came into being. And then about 2 weeks into it, we were like, I think like, I don't know who said it first, but like, I don't fucking like making fitness content. I was like, I don't even like online coaching. I was like, wait, what are we doing here? We are definitely against the wrong wall with this ladder. So then it forced a sort of internal reflection and a deeper conversation about like, and this is the fluffy part that people don't like, but who are we, what's authentic to us, and what comes from a genuine place? Because I can make all the fucking calorie counting videos I like, it's not authentic, it's not genuine, I don't enjoy it, I don't find it interesting, I don't care about it. I do it just because it might get me likes and get me a client. I was like, right, that's not the impact I want to have, that's not the story I want to tell people, and I can't keep on putting on this mask of this fucking fitness hero every morning to make videos. It's like, what could I look in the mirror or lie in bed at night at peace with myself or putting out into the world? I was like, well, it would be a message of whatever that looks like for anybody else, but a message of living a life that you find fulfilling, surrounded by people you care about, doing things that are important to you. It's like, that's a message I can get behind, and even if no one cares about it, I can lie in bed at night saying, I tried to make the world a little bit better in a way that's authentic to me. And luckily enough, Adam's aligned to that message. He's not a dickhead, so he does care about other people and he wants to try have a positive impact on the world. So then the focus shifts from, right, forget the fitness stuff. Even though it's like, it's an easier way to make money because it's just, look at Adam, he's in great shape. Do you want to look like Adam? Buy this program. That would have been an easy sell. I could have marketed that all day long. It's like, Adam, side picture, back picture, go on, give me a flex. But I was like, it wouldn't have been genuine. And I would have hated myself for it. So then we kind of just came together and was like, what's authentic to us? That takes some work, by the way, and it changes. Like, you might start off saying, oh, well, I really care about this.
You might not know.
You might not know. And I think that's, just try. It's like, I don't know if you've read Stephen Bartlett's newest book. It's probably not his concept, but that's where I came across it. But it's called Type 1 and Type 2 decisions. I might mix these up, but like Type 1 decisions are the type of decisions that are like permanent. So it's like, I'm going to have
you listened to him talk about this recently.
Amazon. Jeff Bezos, I think, came up with
that. So it's like, Type 1 would be like, I'm going to have a kid. It's like, if you're going to have a kid, you want to be sure, like, take your time making that decision. Whereas Type 2 is like, I might paint the walls green. It's like, if you don't like the colour green, just paint them blue, or paint, like, you can reverse the decision. And it's like, if you're not sure what you want to do in life, first of all, make sure it's not a Type 1 decision, because you don't want to start having kids to then decide you don't want kids anymore, because it's kind of difficult to get rid of them.
Clip that, James. We're going to put that
up. But the Type 2 decisions is like, if you don't know what you want to do, but you have all these ideas of things that, like, if you'd done it and it didn't work out, your life would still continue. Just make the decisions fast, go with the flow, see what happens. Like you were saying with those conversations, like, you'll only find by like going through the process. I don't know if you know Malcolm Gladwell.
I do, yeah.
And he talks about in his book Outliers, like,
Great
this whole
book, yeah.
10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Naval Ravikant has a sort of deviation of that, and he goes, it's not 10,000 hours, it's 10,000 iterations. Like, just trying the same thing in 10,000 different ways.
Yeah.
It's like, just do that.
Yeah. A great answer. I thought we were all high-fiving each other. Great question. But genuinely, like, I wasn't expecting the depth that you've thought about this stuff. No disrespect, but like, you hear a lot of people talk about this stuff, and it's surface level. But you've clearly thought about this. Like, I wasn't expecting that type of an answer there, because it's from what I can understand from people that I look to for inspiration, that's the key, really. Iteration is another big one I buzzed on for ages with Naval as well, in terms of like, you combine all these different concepts, like Hormozy talks about trying to reduce the time it takes to make a decision, and then you combine that with iteration and you get that compounding effects. There's all these different buzzwords, but when you start to do it, they all start to make sense to you. But until you've started to do it, they're all just fucking buzzwords that make you feel good to listen to it and to say it in a podcast, and people can listen to it.
I'm iterating at the moment.
Exactly. And sometimes I listen back and I'm like, am I just sitting on the podcast? Am I just saying, sorry, is that fucking pulling at you there? Is it? I don't know what I'll do. I'll put my cup on it there. So
perfect. Yeah.
Brand new cup. Sometimes I listen back and I'm like, am I just saying this stuff on a podcast because I heard it on another podcast and it sounds good? And there's an audience of people out there who will consume this stuff because they like not having to do it, but they like hearing me say it. And they say, listen to the Prymal podcast. Oh, you listen to I listen to Modern Wisdom. Yeah. We all high five each other. But it's like that. What you said there about the fitness content, Lee. It would be the easy sell, it's the easy go-to, it's less resistance, everybody gets it, there's no real authenticity required. Not shitting on anybody who's listening right now who's in the fitness world, a personal trainer. Like, I'm a big fitness guy. I absolutely love the world. However, there is a groove that's been greased there, and it's easy to slide into. But you will find out at some point, and so will your clients, if that's not in alignment with who you are and what you feel like. And again, for you guys to be able to figure out early on, like, obviously you like your own fitness, but that you don't want to be the fitness people. It's not your identity. It's not who you are. It's rare, guys.
And we were like careful when we were promoting the book. Like, this is not a fitness book. It's
this
not.
is
And we still got articles written about Molloy Twins' new fitness book.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
Second thing I tell you right now that I expected when I hadn't spoken to you and I saw the book, I was like, okay, I'm going to read this and it's going to be another fitness book.
Yeah.
It's going to tell me that I just need to lose the calories and then all my problems in the world will be fixed. And that is a sell. I know. I understand the industry. Like if for a lot of people, looking good and losing the weight is going to be the solution to all their problems in life. But it's not. And it actually links in with another significant part that you've mentioned a couple of times in the book in terms of it's the process. Because I often think about like what is this happiness thing? What is the goal? What's the outcome? And again, to another plug for Williamson, I fucking have to stop doing this.
Start charging them soon.
Invoice them afterwards.
The thing he talks about, like we sacrifice the thing that we want, happiness, for the thing that's supposed to get it there, success. So we spend so much time trying to be successful because we believe that will bring us happiness, and we sacrifice our happiness, which is the now, which is the process, which is the day-to-day, which is the cup of tea. We sacrifice all that for this idea that I will be happy when. This idea that if I get the financial goal or the business hits a certain thing or the podcast gets a certain amount of downloads or as many people buy the book or how many Instagram followers or likes I get, I'll be happy. And we completely ignore the fact that to get there I'm going to have to do all this shit I don't actually like doing, I don't enjoy. Now I'm not against doing stuff that you don't really want to do or doing hard things, not at all. I believe it's really important. However, this idea of picking the wall on the ladder, decide the thing. Everything is, I can't remember who said this actually, but everything is it who wrote this? Mark Manson. Was it him that spoke about? I haven't even said it yet. I'm asking you the question.
Yes.
Pick. Everything is going to be hard. Pick your hard. Pick your hard. So unless you pick your hard, you'll be doing the hard stuff anyway, and you're not gonna find any sense of fulfillment from the hard stuff, no matter what the reward is. If it's and the old cliche is money won't make you happy. Again, back to Naval. Being poor can make you unhappy and money can solve some of your problems. But again, unless that process and that journey give you some sense of ownership or fulfillment. For me, when people talk about happy, that's what I talk about. I talk about that idea of every day, is there stuff in my day that fills up the cup that makes me feel good. Like we're doing it right now. What makes me feel really good is the podcast, spending time with my kids, literally having a cup of tea. I'm trying to teach myself to really sit and appreciate those moments. Because when I get to whatever I think the top of my mountain is, which doesn't really exist, but when I get there, when this podcast does well or the business blows up or whatever, I'll be happy then. I now don't believe that. I believe I need to figure out how to really enjoy my life now, and the idea of being happy is no longer a requirement. I don't even know what that means anymore. Because it's supposed to be this mecca of gold and happiness. I don't know if that exists. I don't believe it exists. I believe we can have a lot of that right now, but if you can't find a way to pick the wall and create the process that's going to give you some of that, I think it's a losing battle. Fair to say? Very fair, yeah. I think Jordan Peterson speaks a bit about it. He's like, gives the example of like sitting on a beach, sipping Mai Tais, and he's like, if you think that's happiness, grand, it might get you happiness for a day or a week max, but then you'll just get to a stage where I'm kind of pissed off. I just feel like I'm wasting away here. And I think he speaks about the differentiation between pursuing goals that make you happy versus goals that are worthwhile. Because you're never going to be happy every single moment, every single day. Or like, I'm sure there's days you show for the podcast, like I have to get all the setup done. When you're in the conversation, it's cool, but like there might be stuff outside of it where it's like, that doesn't make me happy doing this stuff or the editing afterwards or whatever else. But it's like doing stuff that you feel like at the end of the day, when you're lying down, your head's on the pillow, you're looking back on the day like, yeah, that was a good day. I made one step forward, I enjoyed pieces of that day. And if you stack up enough of them day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, it's like that's what equates to a happy life. It's not pursuing what's going to make me happy in this moment, because a lot of the time the short-term happiness leads to long-term, being overweight or being unhappy or being in situations where you're not happy with who you're surrounded by or what you're doing. Yeah. What does a good day look like for you, Lee?
Oh, that's a great question.
No holds barred. Like, it can be imaginary. It can be. But what do you think a good day is? Yeah.
Can I just mention something previously and then I'll say
go for it.
Because
100%.
I think it ties back into the thing of masculinity. Because I remember growing up, and even up until maybe a couple of years ago, I was like, happiness felt very feminine. Yeah. Happiness didn't seem like something that was alpha, or that like a man shouldn't judge his day by how happy he was. Like that wasn't a masculine metric. You know what I mean?
Where would that message come from for you? Like, it's just a general feeling, or
it probably would have just been from that suck it up and get on with it sort of mentality. It's like a man's value was defined by his output, not by how he felt about what he'd done in his day. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, I never and there's been times in my life where I've been unhappy, like in jobs or whatever it might be. which I never felt like a good enough reason to quit, or I felt like it would have been very soft of me to leave this situation because I wasn't happy. Whereas like from a female perspective, like I never would have looked at a female any differently for saying, I'm just not happy here, I'm going to try something else. But as a man, I always felt like...
That's interesting.
I always felt like it was like...
Bitch move.
Yeah, like it's not manly to care that much about how you feel about something.
Yeah. Men
suck it up and get on with it. And it's a toxic message. And I think I spent far too much of my life in the wrong situations because I was afraid of just sitting down and saying, I'm not happy here. I'm at a point in my life now where I could do that, but I don't think I could have done that previously. And I think there's a lot of men, like in my dad's age or like in his generation, where it's like, they don't like what they do. 90% of their life is shit they'd rather not do.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them happy, but men suck it up, get to work and go on with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a healthy approach, but I think it definitely is something that exists.
That's very interesting that you've identified that. I find the times I am my most content is when I'm killing myself for something I actually care about.
Yeah.
So I could kill myself for something I don't care about, and I could adopt that attitude of, well, this is what you do. And oftentimes, and I'm always very conscious when I'm talking on the podcast as well, like I have a great life. There's people who don't have a great life and they've no choice what they do really. They still have decisions in life, but they might need to work 3 jobs to support their family, whatever it might be. They might be in the fields in Vietnam or somewhere, I don't know. There's lots of different, obviously, types of life. But for me personally, I found that I do need that level of, I work really hard as a man, but I need to have it in alignment, as you guys have identified, with what I actually care about and what actually fills me up as well. And that's the perfect combo for me. I could work really hard in a job I don't give a shit about and I don't feel great.
Yeah.
Or I could not work hard at all on something I actually care about and I don't feel great. I think I need the combo of both. That's for me. I won't speak for all men, but I've found that to be a common theme with men as well. And if people haven't listened to this podcast before, you know, my opinions on men and women, like I think we're synergistic beings. I think females have different requirements to men. I think what fills up each individual person as a person is different, but also I've seen trends with men and I've seen trends with women, and we're different and we complement each other. That's my personal opinion. Podcast has just been cancelled, but there you go. But I can't speak for women. I have the female experience, but for men, definitely I found that that combination of working really hard, like working yourself, but towards something. And I think Peterson spoke about it before. Like a man without that, number one, that purpose, that sense of purpose, which is the hard work. Like I get up in the morning and I work hard, but combined with a sense of meaning is really important. And they might sound like the same word, but for me, they're actually different. Like purpose is I get up and I work and I move forward and I make things happen, and that's what I want to do. But also I have to care about that, and I have to be in alignment with what I actually believe. So back to the question of the
dream day.
What is it? What is a really good day? Because we're talking about like processes over outcomes. So not what does because the usual question is like, where do you guys want to go? How many books do you want to sell? Like I don't give a fuck. You don't give a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck.
100%.
What does that really good day look like to you?
Yeah, it's actually something I spent a lot of time thinking about, because I heard a quote just back on the point of happiness. It was like, happiness isn't at the top of the mountain, it's the shoes that you wear to get there. Another way, it's the approach that you take, it's the way, the perspective you hold, the way you frame things. So I was like, happiness for me isn't when we sell 1 million books, if that was ever even a remote possibility.
You just said when, so not if.
So get going. But happiness for me, if I break it down into like buckets, I think I've said it on the peer pod, is like there's the family side of it, there's like the health and fitness side of it, and then there's the finances side of it. So it's like family relationships is like, am I surrounded by people I care about and who add value to my life? Fitness, health, is my body functional? Like, can I do the things I want to do and enjoy doing? And then finances, do I have enough money to not have to worry about how am I going to pay for this next month, or my NCT is coming up or something like that?
Yeah.
It's like once those 3 buckets in my life are aligned, then a happy day just looks like getting up, having a nice cup of coffee in the morning, reading a book that I enjoy, working on something in the morning that I find meaningful, whether it's making reels for Instagram, editing posts, editing the book. I love that whole book process. Going for a workout in the afternoon, coming back, doing some more work, like jumping on a podcast or something like this. I love doing stuff like this. And then having a nice meal in the evening, sitting down, having a chat with Adam, a cup of tea and a chocolate bar, and then go to bed.
Yeah. It's beautiful, yeah. That's simple. The dream, like. And it's funny because most people would listen to that and go, that sounds amazing. Like, the little things sound amazing there. But then you ask them what would make you happy, right? Mansion.
Yeah.
You're like, well, hold on, is that just listening to the mansion?
Slow down.
Yeah, slow down a second here. What about you, Adam?
It's actually very similar, and what you said I agree with completely. I feel like I need something to be working towards. That's what brings me alive.
Yeah.
Like that's when I feel in the best. It's not when I'm just chilling and have nothing on the diary for the day. It's when I'm up at the crack of dawn getting stuck into something. I don't know if it is a masculine thing. It's definitely a me thing. I'm sure lots of men feel it. It's like, I just need a mission.
Yeah.
I remember watching a documentary on Uber, And there was like a little docu-series they made on creating Uber. And there was a quote that the founder, well, it wasn't actually the founder, it was someone playing the founder of Uber, but that he said, his name's Travis Kalanick, is the founder of Uber. And he's like, this is the hill I die on. And he was speaking about when Uber was like in the shits and it was looking like it might not go. And the investors were like, you just gonna bounce and like let us lose all our money? He's like, nah, this is the hill I die on. It's like, that's what I wanted. That's what I felt like I was looking for in life. It's like, I want a hill to die on. You know, I want a mission. I want something to do. I don't want to just float about for 60, 70 years, then look back at the end and be like, that was all right. It's like, I want a purpose, a mission. So I feel like great days for me are days when like, I'm just up, I'm getting stuck into stuff, I'm working hard, and I know what I'm doing is contributing to pushing me forward or pushing the goal or the dream or whatever I'm trying to pursue forward. And then I will be quite introverted, I'd say. I like working alone and in peace, but I definitely feel if I don't chat to people like Lee, for example, or me missus or anything like that, like there is definitely a balance I need to get right of like connection with people and not just making sure I lock myself in the bedroom all day and get cracking into stuff. So getting that balance right, and then going out for a bit of grub, having a nice whiskey and Coke Zero in the evening or something, chilling out, watching the United game, maybe not at the moment because they're not too enjoyable. But that's what a great day for me looks like, is having something I give a shit about, being able to just get up and get stuck into that, getting a gym session in, doing those things, and then being able to relax in the evening, chat to Lee, unwind and get ready to go again tomorrow.
Yeah, isn't it so interesting listening to what you've both described there? You can have that right now.
Yeah, literally.
It's like it's within your grasp right now, and for most of us it is. And again, I completely acknowledge that like people have challenges in their lives. So like I've two and a kid on the way. Not that that's a challenge, but it means that I can't necessarily do the day in exactly the way I want to do the day. However, I have a massive sense of purpose from being a father, and that adds to my day. Every day, how am I interacting with my kids? That makes me feel really good. And can I get up and make them a really nice breakfast? And like part of my perfect day now from now to when I didn't have kids has changed. From that morning routine now involves my kids and my family, but it's still the perfect day and I still have it right now. So rather than looking at that like an inconvenience or a challenge, it's now part of what like gets me up in the morning and gets me going and I can get my teeth into. But it's really simple. And most times when I have this conversation with people, that exercise is actually the perfect day exercise. Like it's something everybody should do. But I resisted it so much because I knew it would require me sitting down and getting clear. And that's painful. I don't want to fucking do that. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But as soon as I did do it, I was like, this is actually not that complex at all. I can actually do this right now. And for many of us, I won't say all of us listening to this right now, you could, like, if you were actually to nail down the things that really kind of light you up. Some of us are going to have lofty goals, as we should. We should have things that we want to get done and aim at and work towards, and that mountain should always be there for us, because again, that sense of purpose for men and women, I found that too. Like it's different, definitely different, but that sense of purpose and meaning and belonging and a reason to get out of bed is there for everybody, absolutely everybody. Just it manifests in different ways. But for most people I've spoken to, when I've actually sat down and they've given me the bullshit line of I want to be CEO of this, and I was like, that's all amazing and I respect that, but like what actually day to day gives you those moments of this is good. This is I feel content, not like blissfully happy, because that's the top end of the scale. I just feel content. And for most people, it's the cup of tea and the chocolate biscuit and sitting with their partner, having a good chat, doing a podcast, reading a book, going for a walk. And I think a part of the problem is all of that stuff has been repeated so much, it's cliche now. And when things enter the cliche bracket and everyone's like, oh sure, of course you go for a walk and you connect with nature, but are you actually feeling that? Like are you taking the 5 minutes to really like stand in your garden and go, that's good. And for me, I found it's completely transformed my life. Nothing actually changed except for my presence in those moments that I had right in front of me. Because when I started, and this is only 3-4 years ago, when I started this business particularly, it was the grind set. Get after it, pal. Like, do your 18 hours, 19 hours. I wasn't getting home in time to put my daughter to bed sometimes, and then I was like, what the fuck are you actually doing here, pal? I was anxious all the time. I was checking my phone on the weekends. I was like, that was when I heard that line from Williamson. I was like, you are sacrificing the thing that you say you want, which is right here. Your kids and it's right here now. This cup of tea for the thing you think is going to get it, which is I got to make the business successful so I can earn loads of money so I can have time to come back and be with my family. I'm already fucking here. I was
like that story, the Mexican fisherman. Did you hear that one with the American businessman and the
exactly.
That little one?
Tell it for the people who don't know.
I didn't hear it. So.
I did not hear it. All right, I might butcher it a little bit, but you didn't hear it, so I'll get away with it. So there was like say a Mexican fisherman, and he just owns a little boat, and he goes out, I don't know, in the morning, goes out, catches a fish, comes back, That's his dinner. He brings it home, chills with the family for a bit, goes out in the night time with his missus to the pub and just has a little chill life. And then an American businessman comes along, he's on holidays or whatever else. He sees the fisherman, he's like, I think you have something here, like there's potential for a business in this. And the Mexican fisherman's like, all right, what would that look like? And goes, well, firstly, what you do is spend more time out at sea so you'll catch more fish. Then from the money you make from the more fish, you can buy an extra boat. With the extra boat, you can get more lads in, which means you can get more fish being caught, which means you could build up this business into earning, I don't know, say millions a year. And then once you're in that stage, you could expand and maybe go into different seas and all this rest, right? Keep going, scaling up the business, etc. And then eventually the Mexican fisherman's like, all right, and then what would I do when I get to that stage? And he goes, well, then you could sell the business, relax, spend the afternoons with your family, spend the evenings going to the pub with your missus and just have a nice chill life. And the Mexican fisherman goes, I have that now. Why would I go and do all that stuff to get that when I have it right here?
No, it's beautiful. And I think, and again, this comes from that book, 10x is easier than 2x. I think I'm going to plug that more than our own book because it's such a good book. But it's like everyone thinks they need more. Like, what's missing? I need to add this into my life. I need to bring this. Going for less is so much more impactful. Like removing stuff from your life and being very purposeful about the few small things you allow into your time and energy and space made, like for me personally, made such a profound impact. And it's just, this is what everyone says I probably should want or might make me happy, but it's like sitting down with myself and like, I don't want that. That's not the life I want to live. That's not the story I want to tell. This is what I want. And what are the 3 to 5 things that will help me get there? And all my time and energy is going on that, and anything that doesn't fit on that list, I don't have time or energy for. I was like, rather than just trying to bring more stuff in or find, I need to get this, I need the new iPhone, I need to get the new camera so I can start this podcast and I can get this guest. And it's like, remove all the distractions first, clear out everything that isn't essential and just focus on the 20% of things that actually are.
Why do you think we're so focused on the 80%?
Because it's comfortable. It's what we're familiar with. It doesn't force us to change too much. Like you can keep the 80% and your life won't look very different. Like you can kind of, I don't know, side hustles. And not to knock side hustles, but like a lot of times side hustles are more mental masturbation than anything else because it's like, I have this idea of, when I'm not working, I do this thing on the side, but it's like, will they actually do it? It's like every second weekend for 20 minutes when you have, everything perfectly aligned so you can like make a logo on Canva. Yeah. It's like, that's not a side hustle. That's just you telling yourself this story of something. If you were like, because your 80% is still there, so you don't need to give your time and energy to it. Whereas if you get rid of the 80% and look at the 20%, now I'm not saying quit your job and go all in on your side hustle right away. Yeah. But if you get to that mindset of like 6 months from now, I'm not doing this job anymore, my side hustle is my main thing. The energy you bring to it, the approach you bring to it, the way you show up has to be completely different and will require you to step outside your comfort zone in ways that you haven't anticipated and are not ready for. And that's the only way you're going to grow.
Okay. Why do you think, and keep drilling on this one, why do you think that our general environment, the world, is not designed to help us with that? It almost seems like it's designed the opposite way. Yeah. To discourage us from stepping outside the lines and to creating our own journey and to empowering ourselves. Yeah,
I think there's, I don't speak, but from any authority, but just in my own opinion, there's probably 2 answers. The first one is from like a societal perspective. It's like societies need to be neatly organized for it to function correctly. Yeah. Like people need to be put in boxes and schools need to have these grading systems. Otherwise, it would just be chaotic. Mm-hmm. So like there's a certain, and I don't think it's done the right way, but it has to be done a certain way where people are like categorized and boxed off just for the function of the society. I think the other answer is I think there's like a psychological bias within humans where it's like we're much more, well, there's 2 things. We care more about protecting the things we have to lose than what we have to gain. It's like a loss feels much more impactful. Like, so if I lost €1,000, I don't know what the exact figure is, they said like twice. Yeah, so it's like, if I lost €1,000, like the intensity of what that would feel like, I would need to get €2,000 to feel like a similar intensity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other thing I was going to say is, humans we're not very good at preventative stuff. We're more reactive. So it's like nobody joins the gym because they might get cancer in 20 years or whatever. Yeah. Or like stop smoking because maybe one day I'll get lung cancer. It's when I'm 30 pounds overweight or when I have lung cancer, I should probably stop smoking and take my health more seriously. Yeah. So it's like we're always just scared to react to the bad stuff and never to really step out and be like, what if I actually took action ahead of time so this bad stuff doesn't happen to me? That's a much harder sell to somebody. Yeah. Like whatever it is, coaching programs or whatever, like it's very hard to convince somebody of a future problem. You're speaking to the pain points that exist there now. And obviously this isn't about pain points, this is about building a better future. But I think the same principle applies where it's like, unless that feels like I can reach out my hand and grab it, it just feels too far away from me. Like the beta region, it's a bit too far away for me to do anything about it.
Yeah. And you'd add to that, Adam?
all that I'd say is I agree massively with what Leah said. I think the idea being there is one other element I'll add to, and it's that idea of why would people focus on the 20% instead of the 80%. And he mentioned like comfort zone, and the 20% will probably push outside that comfort zone in ways you didn't expect it to. And I think with that, the idea of potentially going into that 20%, that's what opens up then the fear of, fuck, what if I do it and it doesn't work? Or fuck, what if I do it and it does work? You know, what does that look like? And all these other fears that we have. And I think sometimes staying busy with that 80% almost gives us a reasonable excuse not to do the 20%, because it's like, well, I'm doing all this other stuff to try drive the business forward or myself forward. It's like, you are, but those things aren't the 20%. They aren't what going to be the real difference makers, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's that fear of failure, fear of success that can sometimes turn people off really committing to the process, to really doubling down and going in on it, because it's very easy as humans to justify our action or lack of action, and we can come up with all the reasons and excuses in the world. But at the end of the day, you won't know if it will succeed or not until you actually do it and take a risk. And I think it's that fear of the unknown, that fear of what happens next after this, holds so many people back from just taking that step and seeing, you know, is it a steady staircase that they're stepping on, or is there a couple of shakes there? But I think that's the only thing I'd add. Other than that, like, loss aversion's a massive one. I think for humans is what Lee was saying. What if I do this and then I end up losing everything I've put into it, or that sunk cost of, like, I've put so much time and energy into this, I don't want to just waste it all to let things down now. Like, those things all play in, and sometimes as humans I think we are somewhat hardwired nearly to hold ourselves back and stop ourselves. And I think there is a societal aspect as well of that, of what your parents have done, what people in your community have done. Like, we were back in our secondary school 2 weeks ago chatting to the fourth year students.
That's cool.
Yeah, we love doing that stuff. And one of the teachers came out and was like, it's so good to have you as boys come in here and actually talk about this, because we could get some randomer to come in and, you know, give the exact same speech, but the boys wouldn't connect with it because they're like, yeah, well, it's different for that fella, you know, he went to whatever school. But when they see the school's called Moyle Park, and it's like, when you see two boys from Moyle who've actually come and gone and do it, it's like, if they can't see it, they can't be it. So you can be that sort of walking example for what they could be. And I think the more that we can share, and I think that's something that social media can open up, is examples of people who have taken those risks and it has worked off, and you don't have to just follow the more trodden path that everyone else around you has done. I think the more of that people can open themselves up to and be willing to go and take that risk, the more success they'll see in life from it.
Yeah. It's like you guys have been coached by PR. You know exactly how to give me the answer I want without being controversial about it, which is fucking brilliant. You said something quite interesting there.
Give us a few whiskies and cokes next time.
Dial it up a level. You touched on something interesting there with the fear of success as well, which is a concept people might have heard, but it's a difficult one to wrap your head around. Like, why would I be afraid of being successful? But you kind of followed up with it there. It's unknown. Mm-hmm. It's different. It's new. It's challenging. It's going to force a reckoning.
Yeah.
It's going to change who I think I am. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, you hear a lot of this in the weight loss community, but it's true for every element of change in life. When you change something in your life, it's a jarring effect. You'll have both experienced this, like with personal experience. Yeah. It's very jarring to now be a different person.
Yeah.
And there's a very powerful tool. I think, did you touch on it earlier on? You can actually just tell yourself you're a different person. And you do things now because you are this person, rather than having to do this thing which is not in alignment with the person that you think you are. Yeah. But when you actually achieve any form of positive change in your life as well, that's a complete, it's a jarring kind of experience for somebody who maybe has been person A for 10, 15, 20, 50 years, and now they're person B. Even if person B is a positive thing, and then self-sabotage comes in, you pull everything down around your head. Like, I've experienced that in business too. It's funny when you get a little bit of like success in business, like maybe you sell something for the first time, or you put someone through a program or something like that, or someone gives you that first bit of money, you get that first little thing, and you're like, oh, I like this, but I don't like this too. Like, this is different. It's new. It's scary. I'm not the person that I told myself I have been for such a amount of time. And a lot of us, as you've both said, have negative self-talk. We have a negativity bias. So anything positive is going to be in conflict with that. So it is a real thing, and I think it's definitely something that holds a lot of us back. Like, what if I am successful? What if this does work? I'm afraid to put myself out there. Yeah, because I might get laughed at, but that's the easy thing to say. Mm-hmm. It also might fucking work. Holy shit, what do I do if it actually works? It's going to force me to change even more, and I don't want that. It's uncomfortable. So it's interesting. A lot of the stuff we talked about, we keep coming back to that internal angst and pain. Yeah. And if something gets anywhere close to that, we have our defences, and we push back straight away, and it's really uncomfortable. You sign off your book with an interesting line I saw, on your side, Adam and Lee. Yeah. What did that mean to you?
Actually, Adam writes all the emails. Yeah. So we have an email list and we send out daily emails. And Adam looks after that side of it. So, like, he I don't know what the decision. He can explain why. I think it's cool though because it's different than like your sincerity.
Yeah, when I read it, I was like, because I basically finished the book and I was like, that's really interesting. So I copied it in a true.
I actually want to hear this answer too because I always see it and I'm like,
we're all learning today.
Market employee, try some reciprocity. I'm on your side. Like, nah, I think the big reason why is because we've been through the process of going through the stuff we mentioned in the book, and what you mentioned for success, like it can be a lonely place to go down these paths. It can be one that you fail and you feel like the whole world's against you and everyone's laughing at you, or you succeed and then all of a sudden the people who are around you start
for goodgery.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody wants to see you do well, just not better than them.
100%.
Yeah.
It can be a very lonely place, and there's lots of reasons why people may not go after the goals or go after the dreams, and I'd hate to think the reason they didn't is because they feel like they just didn't have anyone who'd go on that journey with them, or if they did slip and fall, there wouldn't be someone who's there to help pick them up, or if they did succeed, there wouldn't be at least one person who would say, well done, I knew you could do it, that way. And that sort of person who's actually on your side and wants to either see you do well, or if you don't do well, is able to give you that little pat on the back and get you back up and get going again. So me and Lee have always been blessed to naturally have that because we were born together, came out of the womb together, shared bedrooms together, probably share a coffin together at this stage.
It'd be cheaper.
So it's like we've naturally had that, and I think that's a blessing that sometimes we probably took for granted a lot growing up, but definitely over the last few months has been pivotal in anything that we've been able to achieve. So if there's a way we can virtually be that person for someone else and let them know that no matter what happens, as long as you're on this path, you're going down the journey, you're trying to be better than yourself, no matter who's surrounding you, there's always going to be two twins in your corner cheering you on and being there. It's like, if that's the impact that we can have for someone and that can be enough to get someone to say, I'll give it a bash, I'll see what happens, then that's our job done.
Yeah. Do you like that explanation?
It's nice, isn't it?
You prove that for the we'll keep that one.
We'll sign off on that. Yeah.
We'll sign off. People always say we'll sign off. We're all good. There's a thing that happens when I have conversations with people, and I have a lot of conversations, as you can imagine. Yeah. Not all of them are on podcasts, because I deal with people who are doing podcasts and the producer stuff. I meet a lot of people having conversations in all different elements of my life, and I always get a sense of compassion when it exists, and I've started to develop a bit of a filter for the headline stuff, the Instagram stuff, the Instagrammable, the quote, the whatever. I've developed a bit of a filter. It's not perfect, but I do get a genuine sense of compassion from you guys, whether it's come from your shared sense of vulnerability and your own journey and stuff like that. We were laughing at the start, like I usually jump on a call with people before I approve them to come on the podcast. It's not an approval process, but just to make sure that there's a bit of connection there and there's going to be real value for people who are listening here. But I think from listening to you guys, there's a genuine sense of compassion for people who are struggling. There's a sense of compassion for each other and for yourselves as well. It's not all Goggins hard line flog. It's considered, it's thoughtful and thought through. And again, I mentioned psychedelics earlier on. Another piece of the psychedelic thing that I've discovered is this deep sense of compassion for other people. When you recognize other people are just a version of you, you feel a lot of compassion for them. And what I've had to learn recently is maybe have a little bit of compassion for me as well, because I'm having compassion for all these people who are me. I'm like, wait, can I have a little bit of that for myself too? And I get the sense from you guys as well that there is a driver in you that's based on compassion, not just on the outcome, as we said earlier on. It's not the goal, it's not the book, it's not the podcast, it's not the socials, it's not any of those things necessarily. They're all fantastic tools. I use them in my life, but the outcome is a genuine sense of compassion. And in my experience, that can only really come from having experienced something yourself that you recognize in other people. So you recognize the loneliness maybe, or the now people will say maybe your story is a little bit unique because you're twins, and that's quite rare, and you've had each other your whole life. However, we've been able to break down at pretty much every phase we've had today that's something we can do. Like we can't all have a twin, but we can find someone out there who could support us, or a community, or someone who can listen. It could be therapy. It could be yourself as well. You can be a sense of support and compassion for yourself. But that has really come true for me in this conversation. So I want to congratulate you on that first of all.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed the conversation. There's a question that people always ask, like what's next and all that kind of stuff. We've kind of outlined what your perfect day would look like, but is there a big picture goal for you guys in terms of where you'd like to take this movement? Because what you're doing now is great, and you're really generating some awareness, and you're having conversations like this, and the book is out there, the social media is starting to hop, you're banging the reels out left, right and centre, seeing that recently there, which is great. But do you have a sense of what you would like this to look like going forward? I don't want to put too much shape on that, because sometimes I influence people and saying, we want to do this or this, but do you have a sense of what you'd like this whole thing to look like? I know that's an outcome, but you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, we've definitely spoken about directions and stuff where we'd like to go. our ambition is to have authenticity and longevity in this, and we spoke about before the podcast, like there's plenty of people who pop off for one thing they do and then kind of fade into the background. You never hear from them again.
Yeah.
That's not our aim. I think the message that we share about is both something that we genuinely give a shit about, you know, and we spoke about masculinity and people growing up and maybe the role models they have or haven't got access to and all that. And I think the message that we try to share is one that is only positive, can only empower people, can only help them go and achieve things that they want in their life. And when I spoke about having a hill to die on, I think that's a worthwhile hill to die on, is to try to share that message. So for us, it's the big focus for us at the moment is to try to continue to grow our platform, our audience, who we can speak to, who we can share that message with. That will have consequences for us as well of like, okay, now we have responsibility of making sure that we have the right message that we want to share to carry ourselves in the right way, which I think we're both happy to burden that responsibility and take it on board. And ideally over time, we'd love to be in a platform where we're able to do like live events, you know, shows, speak to people, really get in front of people, share this message that has only helped us in our lives to hopefully help the next person coming through, and not just talk, but also be living examples of it, because each phase of that growth is going to require more growth for me and Lee, because I think we'll always be the biggest limiting factors to what we can or can't achieve. So we can be the sort of shining lights leading that charge, and then also helping the next people coming through as well with that. So I think big picture, we'd love to get on like the Late Late Show or like, you know, all the big podcasts and like all that stuff, get onto Rogue and do all that stuff, be quality. But more so than all that, it's like making sure that we continue to carry ourselves in the right way, keep our relationship intact and strong and growing as we do that, because success for us would never feel the same individually. It's like we've said it before, but I'd rather earn €1 million, let's say, and split it with Lee than have €10 million to keep for myself. It's like there's just something internal there that we both have. It's like we just want to do it together. And I think the more we can do that and be walking examples of the message that we try to share, will hopefully have natural organic consequences in terms of growth and where we can take this to. But that's our goal and ambition at the moment, is keep growing, keep putting out the good word, to dream bigger and work harder, and keep carrying ourselves in the way that's aligned and authentic with that message.
Yeah. Watch Lee completely change now and say, actually, no, we want to open a
6 Lamborghinis and a
the OnlyFans account.
Yeah. Check out OnlyFans, Molloy Twins.
But no, it'd be very similar to Adam. I think like obviously there's the material element of like, of course we would like to have money to be able to take care of the people we care about, or to have a big platform to speak to people. But then there's the more important message of like, because you were saying you were 10 years older than us. We have a younger brother who's 10 years younger than us.
Yep.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
okay, that's interesting.
Should have brought him on.
Get him on next time, yeah.
So like we're very conscious of the fact, like we both kind of try to embody that quote of like, be the person you wish I had when you were younger.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But it's like, we're very conscious of the example that we're setting for him.
Okay.
And like we know, like we'd love to be a role model for everybody. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But we know that we're definitely a role model for him, because like we live with him, he looks up to us, he asks us questions. And even in terms of like the vulnerability, like when we were growing up, we didn't have all the brothers to talk to us about having depression or going through counselling.
Yeah.
So Adam sharing that story, like even if no one else gets from it, we have a younger brother who now counselling is part of a conversation that we have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, depression is part of a conversation that a lot of young people don't have, even though a lot of young people experience that sort of stuff. So I was like, how can we take these things that mean something to us, and they're not all positive, but how can we put a positive spin on it, where it's like life isn't always easy, but you're good enough and smart enough and capable enough to make whatever kind of life you want to live and to make that fulfilling. And speaking of hills to die on, like that's a message that I would love to, if we were to achieve nothing else in life, but we died and people remembered us for trying to encourage people to be a bit happier, to work a bit harder, dream a bit bigger, and to chase something that meant something to them, I think that would be a worthwhile legacy to leave behind.
Yeah, I amen to that, absolutely. It's so interesting. There's a post, I'm actually going to post it later on today, this concept of one good adult. Have you heard of this before?
Padraig was talking about that, wasn't he?
Padraig talked about this, yeah, and I have to give shout out to my fiancée Jill. She's an OT as well. She would have told me this first, and Padraig brought it up in the podcast as well. But this idea that you could be that person for somebody else, and not necessarily your child. In your case, it's your brother. It could be a friend. It could be anybody. You could be that person for somebody else. So whether it's one person or a million people, understanding the impact that you have on other people.
Yep.
Just because you're living a life of alignment and you're having conversations and you're kind of being the person for yourself that you wish you had all those years ago, you're going to be that person for somebody else as well. Yeah. So I think that it's, from what you both said there, it's absolutely a fantastic way to sign off this podcast. It's a really, really nice way of kind of encompassing everything we spoke about, because you could come in and talk about the book and tell me about the book and tell me about the chapters. But we've kind of gone deeper into the meaning behind it, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I learn from this stuff all the time. I'm 10 years older, but I'm learning from you guys, from your approach and from the stuff you write about and the stuff you talk about. I learn from this conversation. I think your brother's lucky to have you there as well to look up, and you'll learn stuff from him too, which is what I think is really important about all of this. If we can embrace this, if we can apply it to our lives, if we can just give it a go while accepting and absorbing the information from people that we trust that's
Yeah.
in line with what we want, I think we're going to be okay, because a lot of the time these podcasts can be doom and gloom. The world is fucked, and social media and all this kind of shit. So it's nice to have a more positive conversation around that kind of stuff, with some practical tools and tips. So congratulations, the book. Tell people the name again and where they can get it.
Yeah, so Better Than Before, 5 Rules for Personal Greatness. You can buy it. If you're based in Ireland, go onto our Instagram and click the link in the bio. You can buy it directly
What's
from
the
us.
Instagram handle?
It's at the Molloy Twins.
At the Molloy
We'll even
Twins.
sign the copy for you. If you're outside of Ireland, just go to Amazon, base wherever you are, and you'll be able to find a copy on there.
Perfect. When's the launch of the big podcast?
Oh, that is a great question. Hopefully. So we launched our own podcast on like Spotify a couple of weeks ago.
You launched it a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, but that was more like we bought cheap mics on Amazon and wanted to see what they were like.
Okay.
That was the MVP.
But we
Yeah.
we're hoping to move into the podcasting space in terms of having a studio to record and film episodes like this.
Brilliant.
Like, I don't listen to podcasts, I watch them.
Okay.
Like, I love going on YouTube and watching them.
Yeah.
So I was like, Spotify is grand, but I'd rather have something that I could watch back.
Absolutely.
And Adam agreed. So I was like, okay, let's do this. So hopefully all goes well, we'll start filming this week, and then from next week it'll be available.
Fair play. Well, we look forward to that. Send us over the links and stuff when you get it. I think this is going out next week, so yeah, maybe it'll be launched by the time we get this episode out. But lads, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your let's get that on the camera there, James. And actually on the back it says Connect, Learn and Empower, which are the kind of the cornerstones of everything that I do here as well. So that's a really lovely gift. So thank you for that.
You're more than welcome.
Thanks for your time, and I know everyone says this, but I'd love to catch up again in a few months' time, see how you're doing, have another chat, see how the journey's going.
Yeah, see what you like with the third child.
Yeah.
This or that, you'll come, there'll just be an empty room here. It'll be shut down, the windows will be boarded up. But new child coming next week. So
thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
Best of luck with the third child.
Yeah, thank you very much, and shout out to James in the back as always.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it, man.
Young Jamesy.
Cheers, boys. Young Jamesy, yeah. Cheers, boys.
Thank you, Mike.